when I write with my left hand, it gets my analytical brain out of the way. And so then you start writing from your subconscious mind. You can connect with the other side and write from the other side. You can, like I use mine in channeling Carl Jung. So it is a way of bypassing your critical analytical mind.
Welcome to Soul Sisters Get Real, the show that goes deep in who we really are and why we are really here.
We're your hosts, Sharon from the States
and Eleni from Australia.
We've had heartfelt conversations as soul sisters for years, and we're ready to share our truths, stories, and life lessons with you.
And to inspire you to connect to your truest essence, which resides deep within your soul. There'll be tears, there'll be laughter, and there'll be no holding back.
So sit back, relax, and let's get real about the things that truly matter. Hello, and welcome to today's episode with Sharron Magyar, who happens to be a friend of mine from some of our conferences, and Sharon has been on the podcast with us before. In fact, we had Sharon on and she started talking to us about how she channels Carl Jung in some non-dominant handwriting. And we thought that is so interesting. We wanted to invite Sharon back on with us to talk to us about that and tell us how to do it. So thank you so much for having us, Sharon. I'm so excited to hear about this non-dominant hand channeling.
Well, I'm very privileged to be here, and I am excited to be here twice, especially. So I hope that whatever I have to say is of interest to you.
Of course. We can't wait to hear it. Tell us about Carl Jung and how you started channeling him through your handwriting.
I think before, when I was on, I did have some conversation about how I'd lost my daughter and my grandsons, and that was a journey for me, and that I was searching out many things to try to help myself. When you grieve, it just knocks your whole world out from underneath you, mentally, physically, every way that you can imagine. And so I'm like, I don't want to live like this the rest of my life. I have to find some joy in my life. And so I started searching out different ways to help myself. And one of the ways that I did some research, and one of the things that I read about was a study for Vietnam veterans, and they used non-dominant handwriting with them. And as they did daily non-dominant handwriting, they were less reactive, and they could less stressful, and that kind of moved them into a peaceful place. And that really captured my attention. And so I started doing some other studies about what other sciences there out there about non-dominant handwriting. And there was 3 or 4 other studies that said that it enhances your spatial abilities and your creative thinking, and that it helps your motor skill development, just all kinds of things that I thought balances your right left brain. And there was an activation of your motor control and your learning. So I thought there's a lot of huge benefits in non-dominant.
So can we just go back a bit, and for those who are not getting it, can you just first explain what is non-dominant handwriting?
Non-dominant handwriting, I'm right-handed. And so normally I would always write right-handed. But non-dominant handwriting, you write with your left hand. And so what it does is it gets when I write with my left hand, it gets my analytical brain out of the way. And so then you start writing from your subconscious mind. You can connect with the other side and write from the other side. You can, like I use mine in channeling Carl Jung. So it is a way of bypassing your critical analytical mind. Mm-hmm. It takes a little practice. When you first start, it's messy and you can hardly read anything. And it's an exercise in patience, but I thought that was probably good training for my brain, which at that point, grief sort of makes your brain want to just jump out of everything. And I thought it would help me to be more disciplined. You know, my brain would be more disciplined. So I just kept with it, and I kept writing with my left hand. And after about a month, I would probably say, all of a sudden, my writing, it wasn't writing, it was printing, actually. I write with my right hand, I print with my left. And the
Mm.
printing all of a sudden took shape. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I can actually read this, which the first month, not so much. It was like I had to work at reading it. And so as I'm learning, it is sort of, I feel like my brain is synchronizing to it in a quirky kind of way.
Can I ask a
And
quick question around that?
yes,
So, if someone wanted to channel, the book I'm writing is with my son Josh, who's in heaven, who
yes.
died about 3 years ago. And I channel him through the book, but sometimes in my head, I would love to maybe get more messages or channel in a different way. Is
Hmm.
that something that you would recommend, channeling and channeling him using non-dominant handwriting and seeing what comes up?
Good question. So I'm going to answer that in a couple of different ways.
Okay.
First of all, if you're going to channel from the other side, you definitely want to make sure that you activate some protection.
Hmm.
And whatever that way that might be for you, maybe it's through praying, maybe it's through asking the angels to be with you. You don't want to just arbitrarily channel
Hmm.
because there's a lot of different things that you can channel. So you want to make sure you're channeling the right. You want to make sure that you're channeling your son,
Sure.
and so you have to set your intention that you're going to channel your son. That would be the first requirement. Is number one, protection and grounding, and then number two, intention, setting the intention that you want to channel your son. I was always interested in Carl Jung's work, and I could see parallels in his work and the work that I was doing. And as you know, I have a psychic that works in my office, and he frequently would channel. He had channeled Carl Jung to me a couple of times, and it blew me away. He was so eloquent speaking that I could not put words into it, and so I never let him go because of his eloquence. I just thought it was so amazing that he was that eloquent. So when I realized that I could I could channel, I could selectively set my intention to channel someone. Carl Jung was the guy for me. That's who I decided that I wanted to channel,
Mm.
and it it just happened very naturally and spontaneously. So if you want to channel your son, you put your protection on, you set your intention, and then you might want to start out. What I would suggest with starting out, I would start out with asking him a question. So you want to get the two-way exchange to flow. So just ask him a question, and then write it out in your handwriting. Write out the question in your handwriting, and then write out the answer that comes to you. But here's the tricky part: you cannot use your analytical mind to analyze that.
Hmm.
Because it's gonna, you have to just be open to what's being presented to you, and
So,
you have to be open to just letting it flow. And it may not be the answer that you want. It may not,
right.
they have their way of telling you things that you probably need to be told, but you went, wow, that kind of stung just a little bit. you know
Yeah.
but also they are your best friends and your biggest encouragers. So
Yeah.
your son is just a more direct way of communicating to your son. I've communicated with my daughter, my mother, my father, my
Right.
two grandsons.
So, what I'm
Forever.
curious about is that, so I do have a line of communication with Josh, and I do have an intention, and I do get messages from him, and he tells me silly things sometimes, or he gives me some direction. And so, what I'm hearing is that the non-dominant handwriting, when it comes to writing the book, instead of maybe just getting more messages, it's just another way of getting that analytical mind out of the way, the questioning, that am I coming up with that, and allowing it to flow directly in without that analytical mind stopping you or questioning.
Yeah, because that's what happens to us most of the time is our analytical mind goes, well, was that true? Or did I imagine that? Or did I
Mm,
actually hear that? Or, it just starts questioning, it starts doubting, and it keeps on throwing all those doubts out. But when you write it, and particularly, so this is the interesting part for me is if I were to go back and read what I wrote, say 5 years ago, I would read that writing and I would go, I have, I had no clue I wrote that because I'm having this conversation where I'm channeling. And so many times I go back and I reread what I've written and it's like it's reading something new. It's reading it with new eyes. So the
mhm.
same thing would happen with you, with your son. You would write it, but then when you go back and you read it a couple of days later and you'll go, oh my gosh, did I write that? It's not necessarily that it's going to make impact on you upon writing, but it's really going to make impact upon you upon reading it later.
Mm,
That's when it makes the
yeah.
difference.
Sharon, I want to play devil's advocate here because
Okay.
I'm just thinking about, questions that the audience might be thinking as you're speaking.
Yes.
And, the three of us talk about channeling, you know, very freely because we're conversant with it. But there might be people out there who they're not at that part of their journey and they might be thinking, well, why does Carl Jung want to speak to someone who is, from America? Like, why? Why would that conversation even occur? Why would that communication even occur? Can you just talk through that answer?
Yes. So I've actually had conversations about that very thing, and there's a couple things that he told me. He told me that he saw my work and recognized that it was an extension of his work. So that was his interest. That's how I captured his interest on the other side, and that he he liked my work ethic. That was the other thing that he told me, that he liked my work ethic. That was another reason that he chose to work with me. Um, you you do. It's like a pair up. In Carl Jung's case, he chose to work with me as I chose to work with him. So it was a pair up. It wasn't just one sided. You can't do it if it's just one sided. It
Yeah.
has to be two sided. So the other thing that happened with Carl Jung through that whole process was he decided that he wanted to serve on my spiritual board. And so he petitioned to do that. And he's now on my spiritual board, which helps to make life decisions and choices and helps to direct my journey through life. And
So
so,
before we talk about your spiritual board, let's just go one step back because let's
okay.
talk about what is a spiritual board. But I just want to say something that really helped me understand how like we connect with energy that seems like, well, even if it's Jesus Christ or Mary Magdalene or whoever, how is it that we, mere mortals can do that communication? This is the way that I understood it that actually really helped me, which is like everything is a different vibration, a different frequency. And it's almost like putting on the radio station. And so if you listen to a particular station, it doesn't mean, because I remember my son when he was little and he had a severe accident and we were praying and he said, why would God help me, Mum? Like there are billions of people out there. Why is he just going to be focused on me? And I understood the answer as, well, God can actually focus on millions of people at the same time because it's a frequency, it's a radio station. So you basically tuned into Carl Jung and Carl Jung actually permitted that tuning in to happen. But
Mhm.
at the same time, 3,000 people across the globe could also be tuning in. So it's not like you have exclusive, we tend to think in a linear time frame that
Mhm.
it's only your communication with him that's possible. But it's just like now we're having this conversation on the internet between the three of us, but at the same time, there could be thousands and thousands and thousands of people listening to this conversation. So we're actually communicating with them as well. And so just to think about channeling as a radio station, you're really tuning into their vibration, their frequency, and you are able to have a communication with Carl Jung, as is somebody else if they had that intention and if Carl Jung also had that intention. So we can do this this can happen at such a much grander way than we can possibly imagine. It's not just Sharon and Carl just by themselves and then there's nothing else going on. There's so many more things going on at the same time. Would you agree that that explanation sort of gives a little
That
bit more
is
clarity?
absolutely true. Let me tell you a little example about that. I've trained I mentor people. And so right now I'm mentoring Cheryl Kearns, and she is a brilliant student. I'm telling you, she learns so quickly. And so I taught her to non-dominant handwriting. I remember last time I told you that I was communicating with G was what I said, communicating with G. And then you said, wait a minute, is that God? And I said, my answer to that was yes. Well, here is the really curious thing about that is I taught Cheryl Kearns to non-dominant handwrite. So she starts writing, and she is writing these messages from G. And then all of a sudden it hits us both. Oh my gosh, she's writing messages from God. And so when I said to you, and then I said, well, if Cheryl can write messages, if Cheryl can communicate with God with non-dominant handwriting, so can I. So that's when I said to you, I was communicating with G. I stole it for Cheryl, actually, is what I did. But that's what happens sometimes when you work with people. They teach you as well as you teach them. So she took what I was doing a step further than what I was doing. And so at that point, I started non-dominant handwriting with G. By the way, she's writing a book, and it's called Messages from G. And it's going to be amazing. I can't wait for that book to come out. So yes, we all have the capability to do it. It is done through intention, and it's done through having a pure heart and a clear head and clear mind. Because if you have not good intentions about it, I promise you, it's just not going to pan out for you. You have to have good intentions in doing it in order for it to work out for you.
When you say good intentions, you mean for the highest good of all, is
Yes.
what I'm assuming you mean. So when, it's not just about our selfish means. In other words, how can I earn more money at the expense of other people? So that's not a good intention. A good intention is what's the highest outcome for all parties involved.
Yes. If your intention is purely selfish, I can guarantee you're not going to go very far with it. It's just not going to happen for you. But if you have intentions of contributing and helping the world, then they will help you do that. And it will be so much bigger than you ever dreamed of. I mean, Cheryl didn't sit down and say, I'm going to channel a book from God. It's so much bigger than you can dream of. And so that's what's absolutely, to me, fascinating and amazing. And so if there are people out there that are doubting, can I do it or can I not do it? Maybe you don't have the ability to do it. There are some people that may not have the ability to do it. And there may be other people. I think one of the things that helps me, and you guys too, probably would be, you go in and out of hypnosis all the time. So you're very adept at tuning into the channel. You know right where that channel's at. So if you take a listener out there, and they're not so adept at tuning into that channel, it's going to take them a little bit longer to get that tuned in and dialed in. But if they're persistent, they will tune it in, and they will dial it in. And what that pair up might be for them could be very fascinating. What that pair up could be for them it might be really surprising. What that pair up. I was just working with Allie, and she told me that she was interested in non-dominant handwriting with a poet. I can't remember which one she said, but there was that really interested me, because I'm like, well, that would be really cool. So the idea of it is unlimitless, but it is also, you want to make sure that you put your protection on before you do it, because it is like everything else. There's good energy and there's bad energy. You want to make sure that you're connecting with good energy.
So before we talk about your spiritual board, which I'm interested to hear a little bit about that, when we talk about non-dominant handwriting, can you give us an example of what you do? So you get into the theta state, or when we say theta state, the relaxed state, it's that open space of being just available, and then just allowing your hand to move. Is that what you do?
Yeah, well, you can do it a couple of ways. You can just allow the hand to move, but personally, myself, I just started out with, I'm going to write with my left hand. That's the way I did it. It's just like, I'm going to write with it. I'm telling you what, it looked like junk. You couldn't read it. It was scribble. It was total scribble. But I just said, I'm going to write with my left hand. And that was my intention, to write with my left hand. So it wasn't so free flowing as what is the other kind of writing there's a name for it.
The automatic writing.
Yes, it's not so free flowing as automatic writing.
Can I just say that when we interviewed you last time and you said about the non-dominant handwriting, and then we said, oh, let's get you back to talk about it specifically, I actually did it. And it's just so funny because you start on the opposite side of the page and you go backwards, and every single word is written like it's written the other way around. So it's really quite funny to watch yourself do it, because it just defies logic completely. But you know what to do. It's just like it's really funny.
So I've done it before. I don't go backwards.
Oh, I do. Like, I start on the opposite side of the page, and every single word. So just say the word is house. The H is first OUSE, and then it goes towards the beginning of the page. So everything it's like a mirror vision.
Well, I think that's incredibly interesting, because that is not how I do it at all.
Really? I just thought that's the way it happens.
No. So what you have done is you have mirror imaged it. Is what your brain has done. That is really interesting. That's what you've done with it. Are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed, but I just didn't. I thought that's what you did. So because my hand just automatically did it. It just went completely backwards.
Okay, so I think that brings an interesting topic up in that your subconscious mind is going to find a method that is correct for you. You know, apparently that was correct for you. That's what started your flow, and that's what works for you. It's like learning to ride a bike. The way I ride it may not be the way you ride it at all. You know, so I think that's really interesting, because Karen, I can see Karen over there sitting and going, "Not me."
Doing that, like, that's me. Sounds amazing.
So when I do it, I have my page, and I start it just like I write from my right hand, but I just write it with my left hand.
Oh, wow.
It's not mirror imaged.
Okay, I'm so glad that I brought that up, because I just thought that's the way it happens. Okay. It just goes to show you that everything is okay. Everything is okay. There's no one way.
It is. Well, here's a cool thing. So you gave your brain a task, and your brain implemented it in a way that was right for you. To me, that is what is interesting about everyone. I always have the belief that we each have it within ourselves to heal ourselves, but we have to figure out what that is. Nobody else can do that for you. Nobody can do it for you. Yeah. And so in essence, I sought out the non-dominant handwriting because I was seeking a way to restore, to move beyond where I was, you know, and that was just something that was presented to me. And so I took it and ran with it.
So can I just give a suggestion? I think maybe if someone was to start or wanted to start out, I was taking a class on channeling. It's so interesting. And they said, start with the question, what does my soul most need to know right now?
Yes.
And maybe that would be a great question to start with. What does my soul most need me to know right now? And then practice it with that non-dominant handwriting.
Yeah. In my book that I've written, I do have some non-dominant handwriting prompts. And so one of them is, one of them starts out, what does your soul want you to know? You know, some things like that can kind of just get the turn the key to get it started. So if you just start simple, you know what, if you just start I always am a believer in keeping things simple. So just keep it
Yeah.
simple. And if you just want to know what is in my best interest for my life right now, that might be a question you can ask. How can I, it just sometimes it's just starting out with things that can maybe help you navigate through life. Might be the
Hmm.
questions that you want to start out with. And then
Yeah.
you will find that it will take on a life. It's like writing a book. When you write a book, you start out with an intention. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book about grief. I didn't actually intend that, but I did. So you start out with intention. I'm going to write a book about grief, but at some point that book takes on its own life. And then when it begins to take on its own life, you're even reading it and going, "Oh my gosh, I wouldn't have thought of that. How did I get to
Mhm.
here?" And that's the same thing with the non-dominant handwriting. It takes on its own life.
Mm.
Just like my
Just
journey has taken on its own life with Carl Jung.
Of course, just to differentiate that between automatic handwriting, because interestingly, just this last week, I've started automatic handwriting.
Mhm.
And how it works is, for me, how it works is I find it easiest to do straight after meditation. So I have a book. So as I meditate on the ground on my meditation cushion, and I have my journal book and a pen right next to me. And so as soon as I open my eyes, I just write the first word that comes to me, and I just continue. So not thinking, I don't even have a question. I just write. So whatever, and like some magical words came up, and I was really amazed. Like the other day I had 4 pages come up, and it was just the most beautiful words that just came through me, and that came directly after meditating for a while. So that's just in my dominant hand though. So just to differentiate between automatic writing and non-dominant handwriting, that the automatic handwriting happened in my dominant hand. But Sharon, what you're referring to is a way of bypassing the critical mind. Another way is to write with your left hand. Do you think that it also benefits people to just still the mind just before they start that process? Like what do you teach people to do directly before they start the pen to paper?
Well, in my own personal experiences, I non-dominate handwrite in the same place every day. So when I sit down to do it, I know that that's my intention. That's what I'm there for. So I think it's a good idea to have a place that you are consistent with where you do it at, because that's kind of the signal. Okay, I'm ready to open this channel. I'm here and I'm ready to open this channel in this specific place. So I don't write it on my porch or in my bedroom or anything like that. You know, I do it at the same place every day.
Ritual.
And I do write it, I do non dominant handwrite every single day. And I hate it when I can't do it. Because when I don't non dominant handwrite, I feel discombobulated the whole day. It really throws me off. And it doesn't matter. I don't always channel Carl Jung. Sometimes I'll just non dominant handwrite. Hey, I've got this issue going on here. Is there anyone on the spirit world that can give me some advice on this? So sometimes it's like that. It's open ended, and it's surprising sometimes who will come through, and what advice comes through. So consistency is a really big deal, I think, and of course intention is a big deal. But you keep it simple. It doesn't have to be complex. You don't have to sit down with the idea that you're going to write a whole bunch of um, um, amazing things. Just
Mm.
write is what I'm going to say. Just write. That's all you have to do. And it will take on its own life. But you have to be patient. You have to be patient to get there with it, because it's not immediate. It's like learning to write when you're a child. You did your ABCs, and then you put your words together, and then you wrote. And it's kind of the same process. You're going to start simple, and then it will become more complex and more layered, is what I really want to say, as time goes on.
It almost sounds to me like when we say do it at a consistent time every week, make it like into a ritual, that it's the same process every time. It's almost like, just say I'm coming to visit your house every week. I'm coming. So
Mhm.
every Saturday, Sharon, I'm coming to your house and we're going to have afternoon tea together and we're going to have a chat. So you're prepared for that and you know that. And so therefore you're more likely to be home, and you're more likely to welcome me and have the communication with me. So I'm hearing that's what happens with when we channel spirit. It's like there's almost like this consistency where the channel is open on both sides. Is that right?
Yes. And it's the same thing when you pray. When you pray and when you consistently pray, there is a relationship that goes from prayer to prayer to prayer, and a door that opens with prayer. So it's kind of the same thing. It's developing a intention and a relationship. So I am intentionally developing this relationship. So yes.
Awesome.
So tell us a little bit about your board, your spiritual board.
Okay, well, we each have a spiritual board. People may call it or name it by another name. I'm just real simple, so I don't get too complex with the way I think about things. On our spiritual board, you review with your spiritual board before you incarnate the things that you're going to be working with in your lifetime. And there are 2 or 3 people on your board, maybe 2. I have 2. I don't know. Maybe different for other people that are permanent, have been there for eternity, is like what I want to say in that. And then there can be people that can petition to serve in your board. And if it seems to be the right mix, the right match, then they will serve on your board, and they will serve some sort of function on your board. And so it can be multiple different people that can help you along the way and help you with what you're trying to accomplish in your lifetime. So it's all connected with what your destiny is and what you have chosen to contribute to mankind. And so getting to know your board is really pretty cool, because you can get all kinds of information about. So I'm walking across the street one day and I get ran over by a car. Holy cow, who wants to do that? But that was part of what was set in my life planned. And that was part of what allows me to do the work that I do today, because there was so much learning that came from that experience on how to heal the mind and the body. Because that just took me to the lowest of the lows, and I had to grapple and find my way back up from there. And so the board can help you do that, and they can help you set up those tasks that you set out to learn. One of the things that I'm working on in my lifetime is courage. So I can pretty much expect that things that are happening to me in this lifetime is going to require courage for me to get through it. And if I have a choice of 2 ways, the easy way or the courageous way, if I really want to, at the end of my life, feel like I've accomplished what I set out to do, then I need to choose the courageous path, because that's what I'm learning in my lifetime. Maybe you're learning acceptance. Maybe you're learning, there's a whole list of things that you could be learning.
I love it.
The things that are happening to you are what are directing you toward that learning. And so on the other side, they put people, places, and things in our way to help us do that. But they cannot interfere one bit with your choice. That is a big no-no. So they're not allowed to make any choices for you or take that away from you.
Yeah, I have to say what's coming up for me with you and knowing that in your lifetime choosing courage is it takes incredible courage to get hit by a truck, have your daughter pass away, and 2 grandchildren pass away. That is courage. Like, I can imagine you are learning some massive lessons, because to put one foot in front of the other after all of that, that is massive courage.
It is courage, but here's the thing. Once I figured out that I'm working on courage in my lifetime, that really gave me a huge step up in dealing with all those things. I don't know if that sounds silly.
Yeah. No,
but it gave me the ability to implement things in my life that would help me be able to move through that.
so it's almost like, okay, here we go again, a next
Yes.
level of courage.
Yes,
Yeah.
and let me tell you what, I would not ask for any of those events at all, ever.
No.
But I can say that every one of those events make me who I am, make influence the work that I do, and influence how I approach working with my clients and with other people, and how I teach. So they're all a big part of that. And so those horrible things that happen to us that we just think are terrible may not be so terrible. They may just
Mm,
be teaching experiences that we need to wake up and look at what it is that we're working on and what we need to be learning,
yeah.
because we don't like to change very much.
Mhm.
No, that's right.
We
Because
want to stay the
it's
same.
uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable
Yes.
to change. So for those people who are, just to close off the conversation on your spiritual board, which I'm feeling is like your family of light, your spirit team. Is it that? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And if you don't know who's on in your spirit family or your spirit team, I would suggest you just call out, because there are different spirits and energies out there that are in charge of every area of your life. And my understanding is that they come in and out. So you might need a particular type of spirit. Like at this moment, Karen and I are writing a book, so we probably have some sort of spirit that's assisting with that. Later on, we'll need someone to market the book, and so we'll probably have an energy or spirit that assists with that. So we have different ones that come in and out according to where we are at whatever time in our life. But if you don't know who you have in your spirit family, because I would say that most of us don't know who is in our spirit family, just to ask for it. Like if you're going through a issue with your relationship right now, say that, the spirit guide that's in charge of, my relationship, can you come forth and give me some guidance in this area? Or if you're going through a health issue, okay, the spirit guide that is helping with health and well-being, come forward. So whatever it is that you're doing at that point in time in your life, you can call them forward, right, Sharon?
Yes, you can call them forum. And we also do, I think it was last year that Cheryl and I presented at the Heartland Hypnosis Conference, we presented, our presentation was on connecting with with them. And we actually did a couple of people through hypnosis. I did mine through hypnosis and she did hers through reading. So we did the two and just kind of did a comparison of the two. So
Awesome. I love that.
there's different ways you can do it. Yes.
Mhm.
So getting to know them is a great idea, because once you get to know who they are, then you know that you can call on them and you can develop a personal relationship with them. And
Awesome.
they're open to that. They're definitely open to that.
Awesome. Just to close off, would you be able to write perhaps a sentence or two that would be relevant for our listeners in terms of automatic handwriting,
You
like
mean
right now?
write something right now?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on just a second.
So for people listening out there, we're going to get Sharon to do a bit of automatic writing and give us all a message that is specially for us.
It's interesting, Eleni, that you had just said we're always on the same page. And just yesterday, Chad came over and was doing a little, like a spiritual retreat for my friends that were visiting from California and Arizona and Iowa, and we're staying here. And he was talking about his spiritual board and automatic writing and getting the messages, and that when he started connecting with his spiritual board, that the messages flowed better through his hand than trying to get the messages and then write them down. So he would connect in and write the messages as they came from his spiritual board, as opposed to connecting and then writing. So, but similar, like it's interesting how we're always on these similar paths, because I started that last.
Totally. I love it. Love
Yeah.
it.
Okay, this is what I got. You are stronger than you think, and life is to be lived and loved. Keep going, girls.
I love this. And you gave us a really massive nugget, because what's coming up for me is, what is my what do I get to learn in this lifetime? I love your courage. So what is that? Like, what is that? And I get to really work on that too with my spirit team and see what comes up for me. So thank you for presencing that for us.
So if you want to figure out what you're working on in your lifetime, go back and look at the patterns that have happened in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So what patterns have it happened? And when you start looking at the patterns, that'll start telling you actually what you're working on. So it might be, maybe you're working on acceptance. So has there been a pattern of things that you've had to accept in your life?
Mm-hmm.
Or you might be working on, like myself, the courage. So there's things that happened in my life that has taken courage. So just look at the patterns that have happened in your life, and it will tell you what you're working on in your life.
Very
And once you
revealing.
figure it out, it's going to be much easier.
Awesome. So Sharon, we did ask you this question at the end of the last episode, but it's a question that we ask all our guests every single time at the end. And this is a different month now, and you might have a completely different answer. So this podcast is called Soul Sisters Get Real. What does it mean to you to get real?
It means speaking your truth, even if that is uncomfortable or painful. Because when you don't speak your truth, there's a part of your soul that is very sad about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And interesting you said that, because directly before, when you were talking about what are the patterns in your life, I know that one of my missions here is to shed truth on lies. So I know that is a fact. And I've gone through a process many years ago where I didn't have the courage to speak the truth. And speaking the truth every day is an intention, because we're not talking necessarily about huge things, even the littlest things, everything. Always speak the truth. Always speak the truth. And you'd be surprised when you set that intention consciously of always speaking the truth, how often, you might say something that is not completely truthful. It might be an exaggeration. It might be, who knows. But when you set the intention that I will always, always speak the truth. And I like what you said, that your soul gets a little bit sad if you don't speak the truth. And that's why, this is about Soul Sisters getting real. So thank you, sister, for getting real today and for giving us your beautiful words of wisdom and guidance. And we hope that this will inspire people to, let go of what it looks like, but just start writing with your non-dominant hand and just see what happens.
Yes. I will say in my book, Many Shades of Grief, Honoring the Brokenhearted, which will be coming out, there will be specific non-dominant handwriting instructions in it.
Perfect. And where can people find that?
Well, I'm hoping everywhere. At this point, I'm just in the process. So my intention again is that it will be accessible everywhere.
So the moment it becomes available, give us the link so we can actually put in the show notes.
I will do that. Right now, I'm in the process of writing the query letter and getting an agent. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Awesome. And one more time, can you tell us the name of it?
Many Shades of Grief, Honoring the Brokenhearted.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That comes out.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. We hope you loved it.
And if you did, please like this video and subscribe to the channel.
And remember, always connect to your truest essence.
And choose love. We'll see you next time.